My fiancée got engaged to me on a Sunday. By Tuesday, my best friend was sitting across from me at a Chili's, telling me she'd spent Saturday night in another man's apartment. That should have been the worst part. It wasn't. The worst part came 10 minutes later, when he slid his phone across the table and showed me a text from my fiancée. Please don't tell Caleb. He finally proposed, and I can't lose everything over one stupid night. I read it twice. Then I noticed the date. The message hadn't been sent that morning. It had been sent 3 weeks earlier. I looked at my friend. You said Saturday. He stopped looking at me. That was when I realized he hadn't called me, because she cheated once. He'd called because he had finally reached the point where helping her hide it was making him sick. And before that conversation ended, I found out the woman I was supposed to marry in 5 months hadn't just been cheating. She had been using my best friend as her alibi. My name is Caleb Foster. I was 34 when this happened. Living in a suburb outside Columbus, Ohio. I worked as a project manager for a commercial electrical contractor. Pretty normal job. Hospitals, warehouses, office buildings, occasional school renovation where somebody discovers wiring from 1968 that apparently survived through spite. I made decent money. Owned a townhouse. Had a Labrador named Hank who believed every delivery driver was either his best friend or a threat to national security. My fiancée, Natalie, was 31. She worked in medical device sales and traveled around central Ohio most weeks. We'd been together 4 years. Engaged for roughly 48 hours before my life became very stupid. I met Natalie through my best friend, Ryan. Ryan and I had known each other since middle school. Same football team, same community college for a year before I transferred. He was the guy who helped me move 3 times and never once complained until I bought a sectional sofa that apparently violated several principles of physics. Natalie worked with Ryan's girlfriend at the time. They introduced us at a brewery. I liked her immediately. She was confident without being loud. Funny. Good with people. The kind of person who remembered a bartender's name after hearing it once. Our relationship moved slowly. That mattered later. There wasn't some crazy beginning. No moving in after 3 weeks. No dramatic declarations. We dated. Met families. Took weekend trips. Eventually she moved into my townhouse. 2 years later we started talking seriously about marriage. I trusted her. Not blindly. Just normally. At least I thought normally existed. The proposal happened on a Sunday evening in German Village. Nothing elaborate. We'd had dinner at one of our favorite places and walked through Schiller Park afterward. I had the ring in my jacket pocket for about 2 hours because every time I thought I had a good moment, somebody's dog started barking or a kid went flying past us on a scooter. Eventually I stopped waiting for perfect. We were standing near the pond. I took the ring out. Natalie covered her mouth, then laughed, then cried. Then said yes before I finished whatever mediocre speech I'd practiced in the truck. We called our parents. Ryan came over later with beer. Natalie posted a picture of the ring. By Monday morning, roughly every person I had ever met knew I was engaged. Ryan was strangely quiet. I noticed. Didn't think much of it. He had gone through a breakup recently and weddings weren't exactly his favorite topic. Tuesday afternoon, he texted me. Can you meet after work? Need to talk privately. I assumed he was having trouble with his ex. We met at Chili's because neither of us had enough dignity to pretend we needed somewhere classy for serious conversation. Ryan was already sitting in a booth when I arrived. No drink, no food. His phone was face down beside him. I sat across from him. You look terrible. Thanks. What happened? He rubbed both hands over his face. Caleb, I need you to let me finish before you say anything. That immediately made my stomach tighten. Okay. This is about Natalie. I stared at him. What about her? He looked around the restaurant, even though nobody cared about us. Then he said, She cheated on you. Everything got very quiet in my head. Not the restaurant. My head. I could still hear silverware. A kid complaining about fries. Somebody laughing near the bar. But Ryan's voice suddenly sounded far away. When? Saturday. I frowned. 2 days before I proposed. With who? A guy named Eric. Who's Eric? He works for one of the hospitals she sells to. I leaned back. How do you know this? Ryan looked down. She called me Sunday morning. That made no sense. Why would she call you? She needed help. With what? Covering. There it was. The first word that changed the shape of everything. Covering what? She told you she stayed at Melissa's Saturday, right? Melissa was one of Natalie's coworkers. Yes? She didn't. I stared at him. She went home with Eric. And you knew? Ryan's eyes filled. He looked ashamed. Not scared. Ashamed. She called me around 6 Sunday morning? Why? Because her location sharing was on. I felt my stomach drop. Natalie and I shared locations. Not because we monitored each other. Mostly because she traveled for work, and I spent half my life driving between job sites. She had apparently remembered that at 6 in the morning. Ryan continued. She asked me to log into her iPad at our place and leave it at Melissa's. I almost stood up. You did what? I know. You moved her iPad? Yes. So her location would show Melissa's house? Yes. I stared at him. There are moments when you want somebody to deny something even though you just heard them admit it. This was one. Why would you do that to me? Ryan looked like I had punched him. I panicked. That's your answer? She was crying. So? She said she made one mistake. I laughed once. It came out ugly. And apparently you decided I didn't need to know. I'm sorry. You helped her lie to me. I know. I pushed away from the table. Ryan grabbed his phone. Wait. I think we're done. No. His voice sharpened. Caleb, Saturday wasn't the first time. I stopped. That sentence hurt differently. I sat back down. How many? I don't know. What do you know? He unlocked his phone, then hesitated. Show me. He slid it across the table. A text conversation with Natalie. I started scrolling. The first thing I saw was the message asking him not to tell me. Then another. He thinks I'm with Melissa. If he asks, please just say you saw us both. Another from 2 months earlier. If Caleb texts you, tell him the dinner ran late. Then one from January. You're seriously saving my life. I looked up. Ryan wasn't looking at me. How long? Since around Christmas. It was April. 4 months. You've been covering for her for 4 months? Not constantly. I almost laughed again. Is there an acceptable number? No. He shook his head. No, there isn't. I kept scrolling. Some messages were vague, others weren't. Natalie would say she was meeting coworkers, then ask Ryan to confirm some version of it if I checked. I rarely checked. That was almost worse. They had built a system for questions I wasn't even asking. Why now? I said. Ryan finally looked up. Because you proposed. That didn't make sense. You were fine helping her cheat when I was just dating her? No, I wasn't fine. You did it anyway. I kept thinking she was going to stop. How generous. He took that without arguing, then said, After you posted the engagement, she called me. What did she say? That everything had changed. I stared at him. She said she was done with Eric. Great. I told her she had to tell you. And? She said no. Of course. Ryan opened another thread. This one was from Monday afternoon. Natalie. There is nothing to tell. I made mistakes and they're over. Caleb is happy. I'm happy. Why destroy everything, Ryan? Because he deserves to know, Natalie. You helped me. Don't suddenly act morally superior now. That was probably why he looked sick. She had him. Not legally. Emotionally. If Ryan told me, he had to admit what he had done too. If he stayed quiet, he became part of the marriage. He chose the first option. Late. But he chose it. I gave him his phone back. Who is Eric? Ryan looked uncomfortable. I only met him once. You met him? One time. When? A month ago. I stared at him. Where? Natalie asked me to bring her car. I actually closed my eyes. Of course she did. She was drinking. At Eric's? Yes. And you drove her car over? Yes. What did you think was happening? Ryan swallowed. I knew. That one landed harder than everything else. Not because Natalie cheated. Because my oldest friend had walked into the apartment of the man sleeping with my girlfriend, handed over her car keys, and then apparently went home. How could you look at me afterward? He didn't answer. I didn't expect one. I left without ordering food. Ryan tried to follow me into the parking lot. I told him not to. He listened. For once. I sat in my truck for about 20 minutes. Natalie texted while I was there. What time are you home? My mom wants to start looking at venues tonight, LOL. I stared at the message. Then at the engagement photo on my lock screen. Her hand. My ring. Our dog's head in the corner because Hank had refused to stay out of the picture. 48 hours earlier, it had been the happiest photo on my phone. Now it looked like evidence. I didn't confront her. Not immediately. I called my brother, Jason. He was 5 years older and lived 20 minutes away. Are you busy? I have 2 kids, Caleb. Define busy. I need somewhere to go for an hour. His voice changed. What happened? I'll tell you when I get there. I drove to his house. My sister-in-law took the kids upstairs without asking questions. Jason handed me a beer. I didn't drink it. Then I told him everything. He listened quietly. When I finished, he asked one question. Do you believe Ryan? Yes. Completely? I saw the messages. He nodded. What are you going to do? I don't know. That was honest. I could end the engagement immediately. Probably should. But there was something bothering me. Ryan said Natalie had been seeing Eric since around Christmas. 4 months. That was not one drunk mistake. That was a relationship. And if she had been planning to marry me while maintaining another relationship, I wanted to know why. Not because any answer could save us. Because I needed to understand what I was actually ending. Jason leaned forward. Don't do anything stupid. I'm not going to hit anyone. I know. Then what? Don't confront her before you know what you want from the conversation. That was surprisingly good advice from a man who once handled a parking dispute by moving his neighbor's trash cans onto their roof. I nodded. Then my phone buzzed again. This time it wasn't Natalie. It was Ryan. A screenshot. Bank transfer. $3,000. From Natalie to him. Dated 6 weeks earlier. Below it, Ryan wrote, There's more you need to know. I didn't keep this. I'll explain. I called immediately. What is this? Ryan sounded worse than before. She paid me. For what? To keep helping. I went quiet. How much? $3,000. Why? She said she knew I was behind on rent. I remembered. Ryan had gotten laid off briefly in February. I had offered him money, he refused. Apparently Natalie made the same offer with different conditions. What did you do with it? It's still in my savings. Why didn't you return it? I was scared she'd tell you everything and make it sound like I blackmailed her. That sounded paranoid. Then he sent another screenshot. A message from Natalie. You accepted the money, Ryan. Don't pretend you're innocent now. I stared at it. This wasn't just cheating anymore. Natalie had deliberately made sure the person covering for her became compromised too. My calm fiancée. The woman who color-coded our grocery list. The woman currently texting me about wedding venues. She had built herself insurance. And if Ryan hadn't cracked after the engagement, I might have married her without ever knowing. I drove home around 9. Natalie was sitting at the kitchen island with her laptop open. Wedding venues covered the screen. She smiled when I walked in. There you are. I put my keys on the counter. She looked at me for maybe 2 seconds before her smile faded. What happened? I took off my jacket. Nothing yet. Her eyes narrowed. What does that mean? I looked at the woman I had planned to marry, then at the ring on her left hand. I want to hear about Eric. The color left her face so fast, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Natalie didn't deny knowing Eric. That was the first thing I noticed. She didn't ask who he was. Didn't pretend she'd never heard the name. She just stared at me from across the kitchen island and said, Who told you? That answered more than she probably intended. I pulled out one of the stools and sat down. Does it matter? Yes. Why? Because there are people who don't understand what happened. I almost smiled. That sounds promising. She closed the laptop. The wedding venue page disappeared. For some reason, that felt appropriate. Caleb, I can explain. I figured. She looked at my face for a few seconds, probably trying to figure out how much I knew. I let her. People usually tell cleaner lies when they think they're controlling the information. How long have you been seeing him? She looked down. It wasn't like that. Then what was it like? He's a client contact. That isn't what I asked. She sighed. We got too close. How long? A few months. Since Christmas? Her head came up. There it was. Now she knew Ryan had talked. Her expression changed completely. Not guilt. Anger. Ryan told you. I stayed quiet. She stood. I cannot believe him. That almost impressed me. Interesting first reaction. You don't understand. I understand you cheated on me. It wasn't some relationship. You spent Saturday night at his apartment. She froze again. I kept going. You had Ryan move your iPad to Melissa's house. Her face tightened. He should not have done that. I laughed once. That's your takeaway? No? She rubbed both hands over her forehead. I'm saying he involved himself. You involved him. I was panicking. For 4 months? She looked at me. I made mistakes. Plural. At least we were making progress. How many times did you sleep with Eric? She went quiet. I waited. Finally, she said, I don't know. That was probably the most honest answer she could have given. Not 1, not 2. Enough to stop counting. I nodded. And you still said yes Sunday. She started crying, quietly. I love you. That sentence landed with almost no effect. Maybe 48 hours earlier it would have. Now it just sounded incomplete. You loved me while sleeping with him. Yes. She said it like the contradiction was painful, but possible. Maybe it was. People can care about someone and still make choices that destroy them. I'd started understanding that about Ryan already. What did you tell yourself? She looked confused. What? Every time you went to him. Every time you came home. Every time we talked about getting married. What did you tell yourself? She sat down again. For once, there was no quick answer. Finally, she said, that it was separate. Separate from what? Us. I stared at her. You had another relationship and convinced yourself it had nothing to do with ours? It wasn't another relationship. Then why did you need alibis? She looked away. That was the part she couldn't explain. Casual mistakes don't need logistics. Affairs do. I took my phone out. Why did you pay Ryan? She looked at the screen, then back at me. He told you about that too. Yes. It wasn't payment. What was it? He was struggling. And the message saying he'd accepted the money so he wasn't innocent? Her face went pale again. I had learned something useful that day. Whenever Natalie had a prepared explanation, she got defensive. Whenever the truth was worse than expected, she got very still. This was the second kind. I was angry when I wrote that. So you did use the money to keep him quiet. I needed him to stop threatening to tell you. He wasn't threatening you. He kept saying he couldn't do this anymore. Good. I was scared. She started crying harder. You were about to propose. I knew it. That stopped me. How? She wiped her face. You'd been weird about your phone. Jason asked what kind of ring I was looking at. And you checked? No. Then how did you know? Your browser was open on the iPad. Of course. Another small thing. Another stupid opening. So you knew I was planning to propose? Yes. And Saturday you still went home with Eric? She closed her eyes. That was the point I stopped looking for an explanation that would make sense. There wasn't one. I took the ring box from the drawer beside the refrigerator. Natalie watched me. What are you doing? I want the ring back. Her whole face changed. Caleb, the engagement is over. Please don't do this tonight. When would be better? I just told you everything. No. I shook my head. You told me what I already knew. She stood. I can end it with him. That should have happened before Sunday. It will never happen again. I believe you. That surprised her. You do? Yes. Because we're not getting married. She started crying again. This time I felt it. Not enough to change my mind. Enough to hurt. She slowly pulled the ring off, held it in her palm, then closed her fingers around it. 4 years. I know. You're throwing away 4 years because of a few months. I stared at her. No? You did that. Her face hardened. People survive affairs. They do. Couples work through worse. Probably. Then why won't you? That was a fair question. I thought about it. The cheating hurt. The lies hurt. But what finished it was something else. You didn't just cheat. I pointed toward my phone. You recruited my best friend into helping you deceive me. She looked down. You knew he was broke. You used that. I helped him. You compromised him. That's not fair. It's exactly fair. I kept my voice calm. You knew he'd feel trapped once he took the money. She opened her mouth. Stopped. There it was. She knew. Maybe she hadn't planned it in some evil mastermind way, but she understood the leverage. That was enough. Ring. She put it on the counter. I picked it up. No dramatic pause. No speech. Just a small metal circle that had cost me 5 months of saving and lasted 2 days on her finger. Pretty efficient failure. Natalie packed a bag that night. I stayed downstairs. She left around 11. I assumed she went to her sister's place. I didn't ask. About 20 minutes later, Ryan called. I answered. Is she gone? How would you know? She called me. Of course she did. What did she want? To know what I told you. And what did you say? Everything. I leaned against the kitchen counter. You haven't told me everything. He went quiet. I was getting tired of that. What else? Caleb? No. I cut him off. You got one chance left. He breathed out slowly. There was another guy. I closed my eyes. Not because I was shocked. Because somehow I was already tired enough that more betrayal felt like paperwork. Who? I don't know his name. When? Last summer. I stared at the wall. Why are you telling me this now? Because I only remembered tonight. That's convenient. I'm serious. He sounded panicked. She asked me to cover for her once before Eric. Once. Yes. What did you cover? She said she was going to Cincinnati with some coworkers. And? She wasn't. How do you know? Because she asked me to pick her up from a hotel near Dublin the next morning. I shut my eyes. Dublin was 20 minutes from my house, not Cincinnati. Who was she with? I didn't see him. Then why did you agree? He didn't answer. Ryan. She told me you guys were having problems. We weren't. I know that now. That irritated me more than it should have. He knew that now. Apparently, everybody discovered morality on engagement week. Was that the first time you covered for her? I think so. You think? I swear. I believed he was telling me what he remembered. I no longer believed that meant I was hearing everything. There's a difference. Then Ryan said, There's one more thing. I almost laughed. Of course there is. She has a second phone. I stopped moving. What? I saw it Saturday morning. What kind? Cheap Android. Where did she get it? No idea. How long has she had it? I don't know. Why are you just telling me now? Because I didn't know it mattered. I stared at the empty space on the kitchen counter, where Natalie's purse usually sat. A second phone. That meant separate messages, separate calls, separate contacts. A whole section of her life that never touched the device I saw every day. You know where it is? No. She had it in her purse. I hung up. Not because I was angry at him, because I needed silence. The next morning, Natalie texted me from her regular number. I need to come get clothes before work. I said, Okay. She arrived around 7:30. Her eyes were swollen. Neither of us spoke much. She went upstairs. I stayed in the kitchen. Then something buzzed. Not my phone. Not hers. A vibration from inside the coat closet near the garage. I opened it. At first, I saw nothing. Then it buzzed again. A black phone was sitting inside one of her winter boots. I stared at it. Ryan had been right. The screen lit up. No contact name, just a number, and a message preview. You said he still doesn't know about us. Call me. I didn't touch the phone. Didn't unlock it. Didn't need to. Natalie came down the stairs carrying a duffel bag. She saw me standing beside the open closet. Then she saw the light glowing from inside her boot. She stopped. For several seconds, neither of us spoke. Finally, I said, Who is that? She looked at the phone, then at me. And for the first time since this started, she didn't even try to lie. She sat down on the bottom stair and whispered, His name is Matthew. I leaned against the wall. Eric? No. Hotel guy? No. I stared at her. 3 men, at least. And suddenly Ryan covering for a few nights didn't look like the center of the story anymore. It looked like one small part of a system Natalie had been running long before either of us realized how big it was. See ya. I didn't ask to see the second phone, not right away. I just stood there, looking at Natalie, while she sat on the bottom stair, with her duffel bag beside her. Matthew who? She gave me his last name. I didn't recognize it. How long? She rubbed her hands together. About 8 months. 8 months. That was before Eric. Before the hotel Ryan had picked her up from. Before I started looking at rings. What is Matthew to you? She hesitated. A friend. I almost laughed. Try again. She looked up. He's married. That caught me off guard. Not because it made anything better. Because it explained the second phone. His wife knows? No. Does Eric know? No. Did the hotel guy know? She shook her head. I stared at her. You're dating 3 men. No. She said it quickly. Then what do you call it? She got defensive. Matthew was emotional. Eric was mostly physical. The guy last summer was one mistake. I held up a hand. Stop. She did. I didn't want categories. I didn't need a filing system for betrayal. What did you want from me? Her face changed. What? You knew I wanted marriage. You knew I was building a life around you. You said yes to me. So what exactly were you planning? She started crying again. I wanted you. I shook my head. No. You wanted me to stay. That's different. She looked at the floor. For once, she didn't argue. I stepped into the kitchen. Take the phone. She didn't move. I don't want it. Neither do I. She stood slowly, walked to the closet, and pulled it from the boot. The screen lit up again. Another message. She turned it face down. I asked, Does Matthew know you got engaged? Silence. That was answer enough. He thinks I'm ending things with you. I stared at her. When? I told him we were having problems. We weren't. I know. Does Eric think the same thing? She wiped her face. No. What does Eric think? That we're open. I actually had to sit down. There are lies, and then there are entirely separate realities. Open, and she nodded. You told him I agreed. Yes. I leaned back in the chair. Anything else? Her breathing got shaky. What do you mean? Any other version of our relationship floating around Central Ohio? She looked embarrassed, which was almost funny by that point. No. I don't believe you. I know. That answer hit harder than denial would have. She knew I had no reason left to trust her. She left with the phone and 2 bags of clothes. I changed the garage code after she drove away. Then I called the jeweler. The engagement ring could be returned with a small restocking fee because it had been purchased recently and wasn't custom. That felt absurdly practical. 4 years reduced to a return policy. I drove there during lunch. The woman behind the counter recognized me. Oh, congratulations. I put the box down. Actually, no. Her smile disappeared. She didn't ask questions. I appreciated that. 15 minutes later, the ring was no longer mine. The refund hit my credit card 2 days later. One clean transaction in a week full of things that weren't clean at all. Ryan texted that afternoon. Can we talk? I ignored it. Then, I know I don't deserve it. I just need to explain why I kept helping her. That message irritated me enough to answer. There is no explanation that changes what you did. He responded almost immediately. I know. Then nothing. I preferred that. The next major problem was the townhouse. Natalie had lived with me for almost 2 years. Her name wasn't on the mortgage or deed, but her things were everywhere. Clothes, furniture, kitchen stuff, boxes in the basement. I wanted her out. I also didn't want to create some stupid legal issue by dumping her belongings on the curb, so I called an attorney. Her name was Claire Donovan. She handled landlord disputes and civil matters for my company occasionally. I explained the situation without the emotional details. Can I make her leave? Does she pay rent? No. Written lease? No. Mail delivered there? Yes. Then treat this carefully. She explained that depending on residency rules and circumstances, I should give written notice rather than just lock Natalie out. I followed her advice. 30 days. Access by appointment. No overnight stays. Everything in writing. Natalie responded, "Are you seriously evicting me after 4 years together?" I stared at the word. Evicting. Like the cheating was background noise, and housing procedure was the real betrayal. I wrote, "I'm following legal advice. Please coordinate pickup times." She replied with 6 paragraphs. I didn't read them, just forwarded them to Claire. 3 days later, Matthew's wife called me. I didn't know it was her at first. Unknown number. I almost ignored it. Something made me answer. "Is this Caleb?" "Yes." "My name is Lauren." There was a pause. "I think your fiancée has been seeing my husband." I closed my eyes. "Ex-fiancé." Silence. Then, "So you know." "Some of it." Lauren sounded like she was trying not to cry. "How much?" "I know Matthew's name." "That's more than I knew yesterday." I sat down at my desk. "How did you find out?" "He left an old phone in his truck." My stomach tightened. "Second phone?" "Yes." Of course. Apparently secret phones had become a subscription service. Lauren continued. "There were messages, pictures, hotel confirmations." I didn't ask for details. "Did Natalie tell him we were separated?" "Yes." "Anything else?" Lauren hesitated. "She told him you cheated first." I actually laughed. Not because it was funny. Because at some point reality had become optional. "With who?" "She never named anyone." "She said you had been unfaithful for years, and that she was only staying because of the house." I rubbed my forehead. "None of that is true." "I figured." "How?" "Because she also told Matthew you were emotionally abusive." That one made me stop. "What does that mean?" "She said you tracked her location." I stared at the phone. "We both shared locations." "She said you forced her." "No." "She said you controlled money." "She made more than I did some years." Lauren exhaled. "I'm not calling to accuse you." "I know. I'm calling because I think they've been telling different stories to everybody." That was becoming obvious. Then she said something that changed things again. "Matthew gave her money." My hand tightened around the phone. "How much?" "I don't know." "Several transfers." "For what?" "He told me it was consulting." I almost laughed. Apparently that word could cover anything. "Do you know where it went?" "No." "But there's another issue." "What?" "He put her on a credit card." I sat up. "As an authorized user?" "I think so." "Why?" "She told him she was trying to leave you and needed help establishing independent credit." I closed my eyes. Natalie had good credit. Better than mine, probably. She didn't need help establishing anything. She needed Matthew emotionally invested. Financially, too. That was the pattern. She hadn't just created alibis, she created liabilities. Ryan took money. Matthew gave money. Everybody who got too close ended up compromised somehow. That evening, I met Lauren at a coffee shop. Public place, no drama. She brought printed screenshots. I brought Ryan's messages. We compared timelines. It was ugly. When Natalie told me she was on a work trip, she was with Matthew. When she told Matthew she was trapped in an unhappy home, she was with Eric. When she told Eric we were open, she was telling me she wanted to start looking at wedding venues. At one point, Lauren looked at the dates and just shook her head. How did she keep this straight? I honestly didn't know. Then she found something I hadn't noticed. A weekend in February. Natalie told me she was in Indianapolis for a conference. She told Matthew she was visiting her mother. Ryan's messages showed she asked him to confirm she was with Melissa. 3 different stories. Same weekend. But none explained where she actually was. Lauren looked at me. Do you know where she went? No. Neither do I. That bothered me. Not because I wanted another man added to the list. Because every mystery we solved seemed to open another. The next morning, Jason came over before work. I showed him everything. He stared at the printed timeline on my table. This is insane. Yeah. How are you doing? Mostly annoyed. That's not an emotion. It's the one I have. He looked at me for a long time, then said, You haven't actually processed any of this yet. I shrugged. Probably not. You're running it like a project. That's what I do. I know. He pointed at the timeline. You don't have to figure out every lie. I know. You sure? No. That was honest. The hardest part wasn't losing Natalie. It was realizing I had no reliable memory of the relationship anymore. Every trip became suspicious. Every late work dinner. Every weekend. 4 years of normal memories now had question marks attached. You can drive yourself insane trying to audit your own past. I was getting close. Then Ryan showed up. Not called. Not texted. Showed up at my door around 8 that night. I opened it, but didn't invite him in. He looked terrible. You shouldn't be here. I know. Then why are you? Because I found something. I stared at him. What? He pulled an envelope from his jacket. Inside were deposit slips. Cash deposits. Different amounts. $2,000, $2,500, $5,000. All into Natalie's bank account. Over 9 months. I looked up. Where did you get these? Her desk at work. I frowned. You went through her desk? No. Melissa did. That name again. Natalie's coworker. The woman she constantly claimed to be staying with. Apparently, Melissa had finally realized her name was all over Natalie's stories and started asking questions. She found copies of deposit slips in a folder. Why would Natalie keep them? She was tracking something. Tracking what? Ryan handed me one final page. A handwritten list. Initials beside dollar amounts are 3,000. That was Ryan. EM 12,500. Probably Matthew. E 7,800 Eric. Then 3 more initials I didn't recognize. Ryan pointed at the total at the bottom. $41,600. I stared at it. She was collecting money from them? I don't know. Did Eric give her money? Apparently. For what? Ryan shook his head. Then I saw a note beside one of the unknown initials. Trip/deposit. Looked at him. What is this? I don't know. He swallowed. But Melissa found something else. What? A lease application. For an apartment? No. He handed me the last page. It was for a furnished condo in Tampa, Florida. 6-month lease, move-in date, 3 weeks after our wedding. Applicant, Natalie Brooks. Emergency contact, Matthew Carter. I stared at the form. Our wedding was supposed to be in September. The condo started in October. Natalie hadn't just been cheating while planning to marry me. She had been planning somewhere else to go immediately afterward. And suddenly, I understood why she seemed so calm, accepting my proposal. She never intended for the marriage to become the life I thought we were starting. I read the lease application 3 times. Same result every time. Move-in date, October 7th. Our wedding had been scheduled for September 15th. The condo wasn't temporary vacation housing. It was a furnished executive rental with a 6-month lease. Rent had already been partially paid. Emergency contact, Matthew Carter. There was no mention of me anywhere on the application. Not even as a previous address. I looked at Ryan. When did Melissa find this? This morning. And Natalie just left it at work? She kept a folder in her desk. For what? Ryan shook his head. I don't think she expected anyone to look. That made two of us. I called Claire, the attorney handling Natalie's move out. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she asked one question. Do you share any financial accounts? One checking account. Anything else? One credit card. Freeze the card today. I already removed myself as the primary user. Good. What about the checking account? Open a beer. New one. Transfer. Only your future income. Leave the existing balance untouched until everything is documented. I did exactly that. The strange thing was how ordinary it all felt. The bank employee smiled, asked if I wanted paper statements, offered a savings account promotion. Meanwhile, I was quietly dismantling the financial life I'd built with someone I thought I knew. That afternoon, Natalie asked if she could stop by again. She still had furniture to collect. I told her 6 o'clock. Jason came over before she arrived. Not because I expected trouble, because I didn't want to be alone. Natalie pulled into the driveway right on time. No drama, no yelling. She walked inside carrying empty storage bins. This won't take long, she said. Okay. For almost 20 minutes, we barely spoke. She packed books, kitchen supplies, clothes, a few frame photos. She left most of the furniture. Halfway through, she stopped in the living room. You talked to Matthew's wife. It wasn't a question. Yes. She hates me. I imagine she does. She doesn't know everything. I looked at her. What doesn't she know? That Matthew lied, too. About what? He told me he was separated. I waited. He wasn't. So both of you lied. She nodded once. Yes. There wasn't much else to say. Then she surprised me. Eric didn't know about Matthew. I figured. Matthew didn't know about Eric. I figured. She looked embarrassed. I never wanted this to become... She searched for the word. This. I looked around the room. Half-empty boxes. Wedding invitations still sitting on the bookshelf, waiting to be mailed. It became this a long time ago. Before she left, she reached into her purse and handed me an envelope. What's this? The money. Inside was a cashier's check. $3,000. Ryan's money. I asked him for his account number. He wouldn't take it. So I'm giving it to you. I looked at the check. Why? Because it never should have happened. It was probably the first completely honest thing she'd done in months. I'll give it back to him. She nodded. Then she picked up the last box. At the front door, she stopped. I really did love you. I believed her. That was the strange part. People always imagine betrayal means every feeling was fake. Sometimes the feelings are real. The choices aren't. I know, I said. She waited. I didn't add anything else. After a few seconds, she walked out. That was the last time she entered my house. Ryan came over the following weekend. Not as my best friend. That title was gone. Just as someone trying to clean up a mess he'd helped create. He sat across from me on the back patio. I don't expect things to go back to normal. They won't. I know. I just wanted to apologize without excuses. I appreciated that. No blaming Natalie? No. No blaming the money? No. You made your own decision. Yes. I looked at him for a long moment. You know what hurt the most? The lying? The fact that every time I asked where she was, you already had an answer ready, he nodded. I rehearsed them. I know. I hate it every second. I believe you. He looked surprised. You do? Yes. That doesn't change anything. No. We sat quietly for a while. Finally, I handed him the cashier's check. What's this? Your $3,000? His face fell. She gave it back? Yes. He stared at it. I don't deserve this. It isn't about deserving it. It's your money. No. I shook my head. It was never mine. It was the price she put on your silence. He didn't say another word. 2 months later, I received one final message from Natalie. Not asking to come back. Not asking for another chance. Just a photo. It was the engagement ring. The jeweler had reset the diamond into a simple pendant and mailed it to her after processing the return paperwork. She wrote, "I'm donating the refund difference to a domestic violence shelter." I know it doesn't fix anything. I just didn't want the last thing connected to us to become more money. I didn't reply. Some conversations don't need another message. Life became boring again. Honestly, I was grateful. I went to work, walked Hank every evening, started sleeping through the night. Jason stopped checking on me every other day. My mother finally packed away the unopened wedding gifts relatives had mailed early. The townhouse became quiet. Too quiet at first. Then just peaceful. About 6 months later, Ryan called. Guess where I am? No idea. Denver. What are you doing there? New job. Good. There was a pause. You think we'll ever be friends again? I thought about it. Maybe. Really? Maybe. What changed? Nothing. But enough time has passed that I'm no longer angry every morning. He laughed quietly. I'll take maybe. People ask whether I regret proposing. I don't. If anything, I'm glad I did. Not because the engagement worked, because it forced the truth into the open before there was a marriage, a mortgage, children, or lawyers dividing a life that should never have been built together. The proposal didn't ruin my future. It exposed the future I was about to walk into. Looking back, the biggest lie Natalie ever told wasn't about Eric, or Matthew, or the fake work trips. It was much simpler. Every time I asked how her day had been, she'd smile and say, "Normal." The truth was that nothing about our relationship had been normal for a long time. I just hadn't been given enough pieces to see the whole picture. Now, I had all of them. And strangely enough, that made walking away a lot easier than living with questions that never would have stopped